Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Olga Atamanova, and the Ukrainian Media Center of Ukrinform starts its operation today. In short, our schedule for today is as follows. At 15:30, joining us in this studio will be Andriy Demchenko, the spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, and we will talk about the situation in our borders. At 16:30, joining us online will be Oleksiy Negubov, the military governor of Kharkiv region, and we will talk about the aftermath of the missile strikes on Kharkiv and the situation in general. Joining us right now in this studio is Denis Marchuk, deputy chair of the Ukrainian Agrarian Council. Good afternoon, Mr. Denis. Let's start our conversation with the spring sowing campaign. What are the main challenges faced by our agrarians? Good afternoon. Thank you for your invitation. Thank you for bringing up those important issues which are important for both the agrarian sector and Ukraine in general. But before we start our conversation, I want to talk about the agrarians' position. We want to emphasize that we care about the economy, we care about the economy of Ukraine and about the armed forces, and while the army is in the front lines, we see the corruption scandals erupt in Ukraine. I want to talk about Mr. Lozinski, the deputy chair of Minister of Development of Territories, and I think that the president's team will be aimed, their work will be aimed at elimination of corruption. But talking about the preparation of the agrarian product manufacturers to the sowing campaign, regardless the losses borne by agrarian sector, it still remains number one in economy. We exported, in fact, the products worth of $23 billion, which account for 53% of our export capabilities. And under conditions like this, we have to be prepared to the new campaigns, and these campaigns in 2023 will be impacted by a number of negative factors which influence the work of agrarian product manufacturers, which are the lack of turnover costs, which in its turn is resulting from the fact that some of the agrarians are incapable of selling their products due to the blocking of export potential of Ukrainian agrarians by Russia in Bosphorus. The agrarians remain with their products, which means that they cannot sell, which means they don't have enough funds to get prepared for the sowing campaign, which influences in the fact that the agrarians are not equipped with the necessary number of equipment, they don't have enough fuel, they don't have enough sowing material. In some regions of Ukraine, there are some administrative barriers, the kinds of pressure that affect the operation of the agrarians. They get calls from the tax service of Ukraine, which say the tax service reports that tax invoices are being blocked, and some agrarians start thinking whether they should go out in the field, or maybe they will be able to harvest their campaign, to harvest everything later. So those are the key factors which in fact impact the preparation of the agrarian sector to the next sowing campaign. Mr. Denis, unfortunately, the Russians keep inflicting their missile strikes on us. It affects our power grid, and the condition of our power grid cannot not influence the work of the agrarians. Well, the war and the rise of the costs of the logistics and the crisis in the infrastructure of Ukraine, I mean the operation of the power grid that cannot provide the agrarian facilities with the power supply. It results in change of operation schedules for a number of agrarian facilities. Some of the companies have to reduce the number of employees, and it in its turn results in the lower output of the agrarian sector products. So small farmers which operate under, like, within the capabilities provided by their proper funds, they just cannot make it, because they need from 50 to 100 megawatt generators. And to a large extent now we see that those who keep afloat are medium-sized and big agrarian businesses, and mostly the small businesses go out of the market due to the difficult situation. But it will not influence the overall food security in Ukraine, because talking about the use of the electric power, it impacts more the operation of the processing facilities. And talking about the agrarians, it influences their capability for operation of dryers, for example, for those who produce corn. So it affects some sectors like corn that I mentioned, but in other sectors it will be easier, for example, for oil manufacturers. And the intrinsic cost of the manufacturing of certain agrarian products, it grows. For example, if you have to procure a generator with at least 100 megawatts capacity for a milk farm, which they procure from a European country, its cost is from $16,000 to $30,000 depending on its condition, and it consumes about 20 liters of diesel per hour, which results in the growth of the final products. And until we have these problems with the power supply, it may all result in the gradual growth of product costs. So you voiced a number of problems that our agrarians keep facing, but there is the program of government support. How is it capable to covering the costs of the agrarians? Well, we understand that from the very beginning, those funds that were received by the agrarian manufacturers, they're all concentrated on the defense capabilities. But there is still funding for the projects in agrarian sector. I'm talking about 1,560,000,000 hryvnias, which will be forwarded for the development of horticulture and greenhouses. 1 billion goes for horticulture and greenhouses. About 200 millions will be forwarded for development of a very important sector, is the water use, where the fields need more irrigation, and there will be a significant amount of funds allocated for the development of a small family farms. There is another yet another system backed by the international financial organizations and banks. Also, there will be financing for the support of fishing facilities, and the agrarians were able to raise about 300 hryvnias per 1 hectare, and the facilities, the agricultural facilities, were able to raise about 560,000 hryvnias per cow for the cattle farms. And now there is a big work done by the Ministry of Agrarian Development for the raising of funds and backing of development of agrarian sector and small farms. Well, talking about the residues that we still need to export in terms of our grain, our wheat. Is there any actual problem with storage so far? Well, we have to state that during the active phase of the harvesting campaign, there was a need for more storage facilities, because as we mentioned, the number of elevators remained in the occupied areas or were destroyed. But thanks to the program of issue of the polymer sleeves, which were capable of storing 200 tons and in every separate facility, that problem was solved. Those sleeves were issued for free. So in Sumy, Chernihiv and Cherkasy regions, the agrarians received them. So we cannot say that there is some lack of storage capacities, but at the same time, our harvest output is lower, and in 2023 it will be yet lower compared to the period before war. It will be about 60% lower. So this program of issue of free polymer sleeves, it will be continued. I will remind you, FAO helped us with that, and the governments of Canada and Japan. This partnership will be actual for year 2023. Thank you for this information, dear colleagues. If you have any questions, please introduce yourself. Good afternoon, Anastasia Kravchenko, Ukrinform. I have a question regarding previous harvest. We know that corn is still in the fields. So can you tell us what will be the amount of corn which will not be harvested, and how will it influence the next harvesting season? It's a very actual question. About 8 million tons were remaining in the fields in December, but thanks to the favorable weather conditions, we were able to harvest the vast majority of it. I cannot tell you about the percentage, but there is an active harvesting campaign so far, so those who want to harvest it will harvest it maybe until the middle of February, and those who will not, they will just leave it in the field. We will have the total harvest about 26 million tons of corn. It's not a bad indicator in view of all the negative factors we're talking about. Any more questions, dear friends? No more questions. Mr. Denis, I appreciate that you joined our broadcast. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you, joining us was Denis Marchuk, the Deputy Chair of the Ukrainian Agrarian Council. Our next briefing is at 15:30. Joining us will be Andriy Demchenko, spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. Trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.